Speaking of things that are a little bit out there, Guy and I have been talking a lot about the lawyers who are actually distinguishing themselves. And this started as a conversation around professional photography, but it really has evolved into the theme of you're not just a law firm anymore, you're a media company, right? And so I said to Guy when we were planning the show, like, all right, well, now we're going to offend every single one of the listeners. We haven't done that yet, so I'm glad we checked that off the box for this episode. But Guy, what do we mean when we're talking about law firms being a media company? I'm not at Disney, am I?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been kind of like indirectly suggesting that lawyers be media companies for many years. And I think that the this segment was born out of a combination of things. One was we wanted to give folks some tactical examples of like who are some of these lawyers who have really jumped 2 feet first into transforming into a media company, like really putting their media first. I mean, maybe that's too strong to say. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's important to be a competent practitioner of law. It's extremely important to deliver amazing client experience. But by the way, media plays a role in delivering client experience as well, which I think we'll talk a little bit about. But the other thing that's it kind of dovetails from this conversation about Google, right? So, people are being skeptical of search. People are starting to say, look, I'd rather get answers and information and recommendations from people I know or from people that are like real people, not necessarily from like AI or spam or whatever Google's spitting back and fake reviews and stuff. And so, in Google, we've talked about this before. Google's making efforts to change search results to make it a more similar experience to what, say, TikTok and Instagram do. And so this is really about like, look, I think we're finally at that point where if you're still I don't need to be worrying about media at all. I just do great work and people refer. I think your time, there's an expiration date on your practice. These lawyers that have when you and we'll show you some examples and talk about some of these examples. When you see what they're doing, and it's not just like silly dancing. Um, it's a totally different prioritization of media as part of their practice. It's not just the lawyer, right? Because a lot of lawyers we talk to, they'll come to us and say something like, "Well, I know I need to be on social media. I know I need to write some posts. I know I need an email newsletter." These lawyers are like, "Yeah, that's like so basic. You have to really dive in and embrace that you're a media company that happens to practice law." I think that's kind of the conversation here.
And so we talked, a lot about brand affinity and using so this is an evolution of that, using yourself generating content to build brand affinity is what we're talking about here. The other thing that I found is, everyone, I had a great conversation with a lawyer the other day. He was talking about like everything's on Google. We just need to dominate Google. And you're right. Right. If you're a big law firm and you can win the Google game, and by the way, we do this for most of our clients, right? We're winning most of the time in pay per click, but we all know how expensive and cutthroat that is. We all know how cutthroat SEO is, right? And they're hard. And yes, the majority of the business goes through that for now, right? The majority of business
I don't
is
think
going.
so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I, I
So so
I'm not so convinced that the majority of so think about here's an easy example. So both Clio's Legal Trends report, the Martindale Avo survey, and the Thomson Reuters survey all suggest that about half of all legal services searches are searches on their own. Like they're not going to a place where like they're doing like either a search or they're looking at like a directory or blah blah or an ad or something. So, but even in that group, I think a lot of those people when they're even if they're starting their search, even if it starts at Google, you're getting a lot of like, all right, I'm going to see, am I mutually connected to this person on these other sites? Does anybody else
yeah.
know them? I'm looking at a review, and so it's not this idea. I'm not so anyway. I just ranted longer than I intended. I'm not so sure that the lion's share of legal services consumer journeys are search, click, call, hire.
You're saying it's not single threaded.
That's right.
And I don't disagree. Like that direct response where it's one search, one phone call, one hire is becoming decreasingly
It's a
common.
part of it. It's a part
Yeah.
of it. No, and those are, don't get me wrong. The best pushback to that point is, well, yeah, but look at the conversion on those, right?
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
high intent.
Yep.
And
Yep.
again, I love search, but if you're talking, even in the context of the conversation we just had, if you're talking about where the market's going, you're renting space for people's heads because in their heads because they're watching you on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, and they're thinking about you. That's where the brand building's happening.
So what I am seeing regularly is the firms that can't compete in pay-per-click or SEO are winning outside of those channels through social. I'm not saying that the biggies can't win outside, but the little ones, the smaller ones, the more aggressive ones, the scrappy ones, they have to because they can't play in the pay-per-click game. They can't play in the SEO game, right? And so there's been an aggressive adoption of this media company approach, which is designed to build awareness and affinity, which we talked about last session, among a local population to turn that local population into your referral source. And that is amazingly effective. One of the interesting things that we have seen, and this is where the genesis of this segment came from, was the continued employment of professional content development employed by law firms. And I'll use this. This hit me across the face. A post from Ryan McKean. He runs a PI law firm, and he wrote about his holiday party. Think about this. Answer this question for yourself. How many of you have hired a professional photographer for your holiday party? Nobody, unless your name is Ryan McKean. Hiring a professional photographer for our firm holiday party so people can put their phones away and get amazing pictures is how we roll. This was the same exact comment that I had. I did an interview with a guy named Dean Blatchford. He is a tax attorney out of, I want to say Ottawa. And he does this celebrity baseball game, and he says every year I try and make this better. It's a charity baseball game, blah blah blah. And he said this year the way I made it so much better, and it was such a good use of money, was to hire a professional videographer. And so he literally is bringing someone whose entire job is to replace people holding their cell phones out, but to create and then post produce amazing content for an event, right? We're
Right.
seeing this more and more, and this is they have turned into media companies.
And it's even more than just the hiring the professional photographer. And I'm going to use Ryan's firm again as an example. And you can follow them at CT Injury Lawyer on Instagram. This is where I'm pulling this example. But I think it will really resonate. I'm just going to read the whole post here. And it's a video post of one of their colleagues uh, talking about, I think she's a remote worker that's joined their team. And this is what the caption says. We had our annual Oki Awards this weekend, and this year felt extra special. This was our first year we had 2 remote employees from New York and Alabama join our team. We are so grateful we were able to make it possible for both of them to travel and join us here in person for our holiday party. Hear this message from her story. This is what this company is all about: building relationships, sharing the love, and having a gratitude for one another. And the video is of this team member talking about how awesome it was that they flew her out there, put her up in this hotel, and blah blah. That's thinking like a media company,
Right.
because you're not. It's not just about. And in fact, she's actually holding her phone recording this video. This isn't even a professionally done video. Not to say that it's a great idea to record your holiday party so that you've got content and people aren't on their phones, but that this is embracing the idea of your firm is a media company. You're everybody at the firm is understanding that it's not just we're lawyers in an office anymore. And this gets out in the world, and guess what? I promise you, people that see this, they're going to remember it.
Yeah, and this is exactly what turns people into. This is the type of law firm that I want to hire when I have to hire someone. It has nothing to do with top 10 things to do after you're hit by a semi trailer, right? Um, and so it is really fascinating for me to watch how a lot of these companies, these law firms, are really leaning on media and the exposure that you can get through the network effect of digital in order to, and I keep saying this, it's maybe too much, but to turn your local market into a huge referral source because they have the affinity, and the media part of this is very, very real. Um, with the
Yep.
side note being, it's really
I'll
hard
give
to
you
do
another.
this.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I sorry I interrupted you. Please continue.
I was going to say, with a side note of, it's really hard to do a lot of media about the practice of law because, by and large, no one wants to talk about the practice of law. Now, I'm sure there are
So
exceptions.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you mentioned that because we'll put a link into lawbymike.com. Mike Mandel, we've talked about him before. He does content. It's not even you say legal content. He had on his site, Law by Mike, he talks about his practice areas: personal injury, criminal defense, sex abuse victims, entertainment law. But if you go look at his clips on TikTok, if you go look at what he's doing on YouTube, he's his content is outside those practice areas. And then you'd say, well, why is he doing that? And it's because when people think lawyer, they're thinking him because they're just connecting legal content. And so, I know we talked about this, but it's a great example of like call it like the unniche. We talk about positioning and being known for a very specific thing, like the go-to person for that. Well, what if you're the go-to person for law? Because these people are seeing you creating this legal content. And again, it might be like celebrity divorces or the crypto scam stuff, but it's the legal aspect of it. And those are actually like, whether you want to harken back to David Meerman Scott newsjacking concept, but he's taking the news topics, putting the legal spin on them, and then creating content around it that people are like, yeah, I get it. Now when I'm thinking Law by Mike. And and on his website, he's not just positioning like, hey, I'm a personal injury lawyer. He's positioning transforming the process of legal advocacy. Contact Mike and his network of legal professionals across the United States. Right.
Okay. So this is really, really fascinating because Guy and I have been preaching forever. You need to be a niche. You can't just be someone with a law degree who does a thing. And it's not just I do personal injury law. It's not just I do divorce. It is very, very niche. The more niche you get, the easier it is to stand out. However, this is the counterpoint to this. The brand affinity that you develop is not because you're a divorce lawyer or because you're an estate planning lawyer or whatever it may be. It's because you're a lawyer. Think about the way you step outside of legal for a moment. Think about the way you think about doctors. If you had a very serious issue or maybe a non-serious issue, you want to ask a doctor, and typically that doctor doesn't do what you need, but you have that presumption in your head that they will be, because you really trust that doctor, they will be able to find the right person for you, right? They're a good starting place. In many cases, they might be a better starting place than, say, the search engines. And so what I find fascinating here, and we've definitely seen this in some of the secondary markets where you build this brand affinity. We talked about this last time, but through media, you build not just brand awareness, but brand affinity. And people come to you because you're a lawyer, not because you're an XYZ lawyer. And Guy, the clients who drive me bananas are the ones who complain about that, right? I keep getting all these inquiries for things that I don't do, and it's just a waste of my time. Well, you know what? That tells me that you do a great job, you have a great reputation, and that people are coming to you for things that are very important to them. That is a huge win, right? I'll flip that the other way. If no one ever comes to you for referrals, you might not have a really good brand recognition or brand affinity, right? Referrals regardless of practice area, right? And this is a very much a lagging indicator. But if you're if you're frequently getting those requests for referrals outside of your practice area, that is because you have built up a reputation and a level of trust that should be guarded jealously and expanded as much as you possibly can, because that is something that no one can take away.
Right. And I'm going to give it because I want to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to giving specific examples. And I think we've talked about um, Attorney Tom before. Um, Attorney Tom's YouTube channel. You know what the right now, just pulling it up, the three. I don't know if it's sorted by most recent or most viewed, but here, just to give you an example, personal injury lawyer in Houston. Video number 1: lawyer reacts to Philly plant explosion. Right, not Houston. Blind man arrested for his walking cane 2.0.
Yep.
And did Taylor Swift end an era of high service fees with the RIP Ticketmaster stuff? This is thinking like a media company.
Yeah.
42,000 views, 42,000 views, 45,000 views. Now, again, is this direct response? Are people that are coming in there looking at Rest in Peace Ticketmaster, being like, oh, I'm going to call Attorney Tom because I know someone that got in a car accident? Maybe, but that's not the point, right? The point is now Attorney Tom is renting space in those viewers' minds.
Media company, law firm. You pick.
Money makes it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.